In this video, we will discuss what exactly is the controller dot rule concept and how we can solve it. Now, this dot rule is very useful when you have controllers who have nested scopes. Nested scopes means what? For example, you can see that I have two controllers here. One is a customer controller and the address controller. And both of these controllers have a ID property. Now let us say I go down below and I create a div tag and I consume the customer controller inside it. Now let us assume that we have one-to-many relationship. One-to-many relationship means one customer can have multiple addresses. So what I will do is I will go and create one more div tag down below, and here I will go and create the controller for address. Now you can see here this is a very classic case of a nested controller. So the customer and addresses are actually nested with each other. Now let us say you can see that I also have an ID property. So basically I have the ID of the customer as 1 and the address ID as 2. Okay, so let us say I want to go and display the ID of the customer here, and I want to go and display the ID of the address here, right? So this will display me the address, the ID of the address, and this will display me the ID of the customer. So the top will display me 1 and this will display me 2. So if I run this, you can see that the top controller, customer controller is displaying 1 and the bottom controller, that is address, is displaying 2. But now let us say I want to go and display in the address section the ID of the customer. So yes, this is the address ID, but now here I want to go and display the ID of the customer. Now because both the property names are ID, it is very difficult, right? So for that what Angular has done, they have given something called as the $parent. So you can say here parent dot ID, right? So if you do this, you can now display here the customer's ID. So you can see here this is the address ID and this is the customer ID. But if you have more nested scopes below, right? So let us say that inside the address you have phones and etc. So what can happen is that at one moment of time your code starts becoming like this. If you want to refer 2 level up the parent, then you have to say here $parent dot ID, right? So while you're doing nested scopes, you can have your code can become very bad, right? Because you end up into long chain of dots. So for that, one of the practice, you'll see that in Angular people follow is they go and qualify the property. So they go and say that don't say this is an ID, but also put a qualifier or a namespace before it. So I'll say here this is customer's ID and this is address ID. If you see in our previous project also, we have qualified the object. So now what will happen is, so I will say here this is customer's ID and this is address ID and this is customer ID. So now if I want to go and refer my parent, it becomes customer.customer ID. So this code also will work, but you can see now that my code is much cleaner as compared to the previous code. So if I now reload this, some error. Yes, when you actually go and do like this, you have to say here because this customer is actually an object, right? So you have to say this is an object, and this address is also an object, right? So there it is. Now you can see now this code is much cleaner as compared to the previous one. So now I know that this ID which I am referring here is the customer's ID, and this ID which I am referring here is the address ID. So this is termed as the dot rule in Angular, where rather than keeping hanging variables in a controller, you try to make it a part of an object. But now let me complicate the situation. Let us say that you have a nested scope of the same object. Means you have the customer, and inside the customer you have a customer. Okay, look at this. So you have a customer, and inside that you have a customer and one more customer. Okay, and over here what I will do is let me go and put a text box, and let me tie up with the ng model. So this object is tied up with the customer.id, right? Now I want to again display here the top parent value. So let us say first thing, if I just say customer.id, this displays this displays his value, that is, let us say, I'll say this is a second level value, right? But what if I want to now go and display the parent? So again I end up with the same kind of code. Again I have to say here, if you want to display parent level, then again $parent dot customer dot id, right? And inside this, if I want to now again go and see the parent value, then again over here I have to say here $parent dot customer id, right? And this is the third level. So you can see now again I am still in the same situation. So in case I have a nested scope of the same controller, for some reason I can again end up with such kind of a bad code, where I have parent reference, right? So if you see now, this code will work. So you can see that is a top value, the top parent. So when I change here, you can see now at every level I can access the parent ID, and the respective levels are accessing their ID by referencing the object's name and the property name. But the problem here again is that I am ending up into such kind of a bad code, where I don't know at one moment of time which parent I am referring, right? So I again need some more better, in order to have a better readable code, I need to somehow have better options. If you see, the basic problem here is that if you want to really solve this problem from the root, right, you need to refer this, you need to name this instance. So this instance has to be named right away here. So for example, somehow if I can say this is this customer's instance x1 and this customer's instance x2 and this customer instance x3, then I can solve this bad code problem, right? So for that, they have given the as keyword. So you can see a customer as, this is level 1, this is customer as, this is level 2, and this is customer as, this is level 3, right? So now what I can do, I can say, okay, this is level 1's customer 1, right? So I will say here level 1 dot customer ID, level 1 dot customer ID. This is, I want to display what here? I want to display level 2 dot customer ID, and here I will say I want to display level 1's customer ID. This is level 3's customer ID. So you can see now, because I am able to name every instance in the controller, right, of the scope. So you can see that now my code is much better. So I don't have to now say $parent. I can just say here level 1, right? So if I now reload this, it works as it was. Ooh, some problem. F12. You can see that there are no errors. So now what is the problem? The problem is this $scope. Now that we are giving the control to the as keyword, saying that you will create the object, you will inject the scope. So we don't have to say $scope here. I can just say this dot customer and this dot customer ID. Okay, you can see now this is again becoming a much better code, because now this as object will inject the scope, right? My functions here are pure JavaScript. The time I put $scope, my function actually becomes dirty. You know, it get mixed with the Angular technical infrastructure, right? But now, because he is going to go and inject the scope here, I have removed the $scope and just made it a plain JavaScript object. You definitely still have to register the controller, right? But you don't have to put $scope here. So now if I go and run this, it will work. So now if you see, there it is. You can see now it is working, right? So this is my parent object I'm modifying, and all my child at every level can refer that object by using the using the alias. Like for example, this is level 1, so everybody can just use level 1. So rather than using those long code of $parent, you can just now refer the alias. So there are two big benefits of controller. One is the controller as keyword. One is that you don't end up into a long lengthy code, your code becomes clean. And second, very important, your JavaScript functions become free of the $scope object. That means your JavaScript functions can now remain pure, and your Angular code will not mix with the JavaScript code. If you remember, in one of the previous part of the video, we use factory and services to do this. Remember, Angular is still injecting the $scope object, but in your code you don't have to explicitly now mention it. So now one of the things which can come to your mind is that how is this all working internally? What is Angular doing internally? How is this chaining of the calls of the parent working? Now remember that at this moment, this as keyword here is nothing but it is a syntax sugar. That means that it makes your syntaxes simple. So rather than writing the $parent, you are now writing directly the alias name. But internally, it still calls the $parent. So internally, the functioning is still happening like that. So the next question which comes is that what exactly is this $parent? How is this method call or the method chaining working? Remember that Angular is a JavaScript framework. So the behaviors of JavaScript will be reflected inside Angular. So in other words, whatever nature of JavaScript language we see will also be reflected inside Angular, right? So in JavaScript, we have something called as the prototype object. So at this moment, Angular is using that prototype object. What exactly is a prototype object? A prototype object is nothing but it is an object which points towards an other object, right? So this whole thing, what is happening here, is happening because of the JavaScript prototype object. So what happens, for example, now let us say I will say that this is a customer and it has an add method, right? Look at this, right? So I will say alert, this is add. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to go and say that, okay, take this customer, inherit from this customer, and I want to override this add method with some other logic. Now remember, in JavaScript we do not have really any kind of inheritance. We do not have inheritance, we really do not have classes and etc., right? So what people do here, they use the prototype object. Okay, so in other words, I will do something like this. I will say function. I will say, let us say this is a customer extended. Okay, and I will put here this dot add, and I will say this is add of extended, right? So you can see now this customer extended is actually putting his own logic, but this customer extended, I will say that his prototype should have a reference of customer. Now look at this code here. So you can see now we have the customer with some base logic, then we have customer extended with some his own logic, but inside we have a prototype object which points to the customer. So this customer extended's prototype object, this prototype is a ready-made object. It is a ready-made object. The time you create any object in JavaScript, you will get a prototype object. So now what will happen here? So if I now go and create an object of customer extended, look at this. If I now go and create an object of customer extended, and if I say x dot add, let us see what we see, what we are going to see. So I'm going to go and run this. So you can see now this is calling this dot add of the extended. Okay, but now let us say that I don't have a add method here. So let me go and comment this. If I comment this now, and if I run this, you can see now he is now calling the add of the customer, right? So what is happening? First thing, inside, this prototype object actually forms a linked list of object. Again I repeat, internally the object is referring the customer object via the prototype object, so it is forming a linked list. So you have a customer object, the customer object is referred inside the customer extended via the prototype object. Okay, so now what happens when you go and say this dot add, or when you go and say dot add, it first tries to find inside the customer extended object. If it does not find it, it actually then goes to find inside the prototype object, and inside the prototype object you have given this customer. So in that customer he goes and he finds the add and he invokes it. So remember that in JavaScript we do not have inheritance. We just have this simple prototype object which is nothing but a simple linked list, and whenever we make a call of a method or a property, it actually first tries to find in the base object. If it does not find, it will then find in the prototype object, and if it does not find in the prototype object, then it will say that this is not defined, or it will throw an exception. So because of this prototypical inheritance, Angular also behaves the same way. So previously when I was saying $parent.$parent, it was nothing but internally it was using the prototypical behavior of JavaScript. So all this is happening because Angular is using the prototypical inheritance of JavaScript. Great. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. So in this video we discussed what is a problem with the with nested controllers, and then we saw that how we can solve that problem by using the dot rule, and then we also saw that how the as syntax actually gives us an alias, and it also frees your function from the $scope, right, from the $scope code. And then we also discussed that how this is all happening internally due to JavaScript prototypical inheritance. Now this is a small request. We are also tracking that people are saying which part of the video and what are the issues. So what I would suggest is that, in regular intervals or as you move ahead from one lab to other lab, please do go ahead and put your feedback on facebook.com/questpond. Let us know that on which lab you are, and let us know that what more other kind of videos you would like to see. So with this, we get an idea that people are looking into Angular more, they are looking into SharePoint more, or they are looking into C#, or they are looking into design patterns or MSBI or what, right? So we do get idea that people are looking into which of the labs and till what lab people have reached. So please go ahead and tell us that on which lab you are on. With that, we get an encouragement that people have read till this lab, and also let us know that what more other kind of videos you would like to see in Angular. So we have more hours still left, but do let us know that which other types of videos in Angular you would like to see more. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much.